My daughter-in-law's hand connected with my cheek, so hard that my reading glasses flew across the marble foyer and shattered against the wall. The sound echoed through my home, the home I'd built from nothing over 40 years, as she stood there, chest heaving, mascara running, screaming words that would change everything. "You selfish bitch. How dare you ruin his life?" I touched my burning face, tasting blood where my tooth had cut the inside of my cheek. Around us, the dinner party had gone completely silent. 20 pairs of eyes stared at me, friends, family, colleagues, all frozen with champagne glasses halfway to their lips, watching Eleanor Bennett, the woman they'd known for decades, get assaulted in her own home by her son's wife. My son Marcus stood behind his wife, his face pale, saying nothing, doing nothing. That silence hurt worse than the slap. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this moment, this horrible, humiliating moment, was exactly what I'd been waiting for, what I'd carefully orchestrated over the past 6 months, with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of a spider. Let me take you back to where this really started. Not tonight, but 6 months ago. To the moment I discovered who my son had really married. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my day at the children's hospital, reading to the kids in the cancer ward. I'd been doing it for 15 years, ever since my husband James died, leaving me with a pharmaceutical fortune I never asked for, and a hole in my heart I couldn't fill. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, expensive, no return address. Inside was a single photograph and a note written in careful, feminine handwriting. "Thought you should know what your future daughter-in-law does when Marcus is away on business." A friend. The photograph showed my son's fiancée, Vivian Chen, a stunning 28-year-old corporate lawyer who'd swept Marcus off his feet 8 months earlier, wrapped around another man in what was clearly a hotel room. The image was intimate, unmistakable, devastating. I stared at it for a long time, sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot while my volunteer shift started without me. My first instinct was rage. My second was to call Marcus immediately, to save him from making the biggest mistake of his life. My third instinct, the one that came from somewhere cold and calculating I didn't usually access, was to do nothing. To wait. To watch. Because something about the photograph bothered me. Not the infidelity, that was straightforward enough, but the angle, the timing, the expensive stationery. Someone wanted me to know about this. Someone who knew exactly what it would do to me, to Marcus, to our family. And that meant this was bigger than a simple affair. So I hired a private investigator, not one of the corporate firms we used for business due diligence, but someone recommended by my late husband's lawyer, a woman named Patricia Reeves, who specialized in delicate family matters and had the kind of face that blended into crowds. "I need to know everything," I told her in our first meeting, held in a coffee shop 40 miles from home. Who she is, what she wants, and who sent me this photograph. Patricia took the envelope, studied it with professional detachment, and named a price that would have made most people gasp. I wrote the check without blinking. "One question, Mrs. Bennett," she said as I stood to leave. "If I find out your son is complicit in whatever this is, if he knows about the affair, if he's using you somehow, do you still want to know?" The question hit me like ice water. Could Marcus betray me? My brilliant, sensitive boy who'd cried at his father's funeral, who'd called me every Sunday without fail even during his years at Harvard, who'd stood by my side through every business crisis and family emergency. "Yes," I said quietly, "I need to know everything." She nodded. "They always say that, and they almost always regret it." Patricia's first report arrived by secure courier. I took it to my study, poured myself a scotch, something I rarely did, and began reading. By page 3, I needed a second drink. By page 10, I understood that my life had been a carefully constructed lie for almost a year. Vivian Chen wasn't having a random affair. She was part of something called the Inheritance Project, a sophisticated con targeting wealthy widows and widowers with significant estates. The scam worked in stages. Stage 1, research and selection. Con artists identified lonely, wealthy targets with adult children. They built psychological profiles, studied family dynamics, found vulnerabilities. Stage 2, the meet, a carefully orchestrated chance meeting between the target's child and an attractive, successful young person who seemed perfect in every way. Stage 3, the whirlwind romance, fast-moving relationship designed to bypass rational thinking. Talk of marriage within months, before thorough background checks could be done. Stage 4, the integration. The con artist became indispensable to the family, learning financial details, estate planning, business interests. Stage 5, The coup, this varied, but usually involved isolating the target from their child, manufacturing crises that required access to the estate, or in the most extreme cases accidents. According to Patricia's investigation, Vivian Chen wasn't even her real name. She was Veronica Castellano, age 34 not 28, with a record of similar cons across 3 states. The photograph I'd received, it was from her previous victim, a widower in Connecticut whose son had married Veronica, only to die in a suspicious car accident 6 months later. The estate had gone to Veronica, who'd vanished with $12 million before anyone could challenge the will. The Connecticut widower, Harold Chen, had tried to warn Marcus directly but couldn't get past Vivian's screening, so he'd sent the photograph to me, hoping I'd act. But here's what made my blood run cold. The report included emails between Vivian and her partner was someone I knew, someone I trusted, someone who'd been in my home, at my table, in my life for 3 years. My son's best friend and business partner, David Westbrook. The emails were damning. David, the old woman suspects nothing. Marcus is completely under control. She signed the partnership transfer next month, and then we can accelerate timeline. Vivian, Marcus is getting nervous. He asked about my family again. I need you to back up the Hong Kong story. David, already done. I showed him photos from my business trip there last year. He believes your parents are just traditional and reclusive. Keep him focused on the wedding, on the future with you. His mother will follow where he leads. Vivian, what if she doesn't? What if she cuts him off? David, she won't. I've been documenting her cognitive decline for months, forgetting meetings, repeating herself, signing documents without reading them. If she tries to change her will, we'll have grounds for incompetency. Either way, we win. I read those emails 3 times, my hands shaking harder each time. They weren't just conning me out of money. They were planning to paint me as senile, to steal my company, the pharmaceutical firm my husband and I had built together, and to do it using my own son as their weapon. And Marcus, the emails suggested, he was their useful idiot, manipulated but not complicit. They'd fed him a story about me becoming difficult and irrational, prepared him to believe I was losing my mental faculties, primed him to side with them when the time came. Patricia included a final note. Mrs. Bennett, I strongly advise you to contact law enforcement immediately. These individuals are dangerous. And this type of operation typically includes contingency plans. If the target becomes aware, your safety may be at risk. Please don't try to handle this alone. I set the report down and walked to the window of my study. It overlooked the garden where James and I had planted roses 30 years ago, where Marcus had played as a child, where we'd scattered James's ashes on a cold November morning. I thought about going to the police, about exposing everything, about saving my son from his own blindness. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was rage, maybe it was the memory of my husband's voice saying, Eleanor, you're the strongest person I know. When crisis comes, and it always does, you don't just survive, you win. I made my decision. I wasn't going to expose them. I was going to destroy them. But first, I needed to know exactly how far Marcus had fallen. I needed to know if my son could be saved, or if he'd already chosen them over me. I picked up my phone and called Patricia. I need you to do something extremely dangerous, I said, and I need you to never tell anyone what I'm about to ask. There was a long pause. Then, I'm listening. I want to give them exactly what they want. I want to transfer partnership control of Bennett Pharmaceuticals to Marcus, just like they've been planning. I want to sign every document they've prepared. I want to play the role of the declining, confused old woman they've been setting up. Mrs. Bennett. I'm not finished. While I'm doing that, I need you to build an airtight case against them. Every email, every transaction, every lie. I need documentation that will stand up in any court, civil or criminal. And I need surveillance on all of them, including Marcus. You want to trap them in the act. I want to give them enough rope to hang themselves. And I want to see if my son will try to stop them when things go too far, or if he'll stand by and watch them destroy me. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. This is incredibly risky. If they suspect, you know they won't. I've been playing roles since before that girl was born. I was acting supportive and forgetful while building a pharmaceutical empire through 2 recessions and a pandemic. I can certainly play a confused old woman for a few months. And when it's done, when you have everything you need, I smiled, though there was no warmth in it. Then, I'll throw a party. A beautiful celebration where everyone who's been lying to me can gather in one place. And I'll show them exactly what happens when you underestimate Eleanor Bennett. Playing the victim was harder than I expected. Not the acting part that was simple enough. I started forgetting minor details in conversations. I'd sign documents without reading them thoroughly, then express mild confusion about what I'd agreed to. I'd repeat stories I'd told the week before. I'd mix up names occasionally, call David by my late husband's name, apologize for my senior moments. The hard part was watching Marcus believe it. My son, my brilliant, loving son, started looking at me with something I'd never seen before. Pity mixed with embarrassment. When I'd forget something, he'd exchange glances with Vivian, quick, knowing looks that said, "See, it's getting worse." David played his role perfectly, being the concerned family friend. "Eleanor, you signed the transfer papers twice," he'd say gently, showing me duplicate documents I'd deliberately created. "Are you sure you're feeling all right? Maybe we should have Dr. Morrison check your medications." And piece by piece, I signed over control of my company, the partnership papers that made Marcus equal owner with me, the operational authority that let him and David make decisions without my approval, the board seat that I'd held for 40 years. Vivian watched it all with barely concealed triumph, playing the devoted daughter, and she'd bring me tea, pat my hand, say things like, "Don't worry, Mother Eleanor, we'll take care of everything. You just rest, Mother Eleanor." I hated that name. But the worst was, the night Marcus and Vivian announced they were moving the wedding up, from October to July, just 6 weeks away. "We don't want to wait anymore," Marcus said, holding Vivian's hand across my dining room table. "Life's too short. Dad taught us that." Bringing James into it was a calculated move, and it worked. I felt tears reel, once pricked my eyes. "Your father would be so happy," I managed to say. "He always wanted you to find someone special." Marcus smiled, relieved. He'd been worried I'd object to the rushed timeline. "Then you'll help with the planning. Vivian wants it here, in the garden, where you and Dad got married." My garden, the roses James and I planted, the place I'd scattered his ashes. "Of course," I said softly, "it would be an honor." Vivian squeezed my hand, her perfect nails digging in just slightly. "Thank you, Mother Eleanor. This means everything to Marcus, to both of us." That night, after they left, I went to my study and reviewed Patricia's latest report. The evidence was mounting beautifully. Bank records showing Vivian's real identity and previous cons, email chains between Vivian and David, planning how to phase Eleanor out after the wedding, audio recordings of David coaching Marcus on how to handle my cognitive issues, documentation of the forged medical records they'd planted in my doctor's office, showing false dementia diagnoses. But we didn't have the smoking gun yet. We didn't have evidence of what they planned to do after the wedding, the final stage of their con. Patricia believed they were planning either to commit me to a memory care facility against my will, or something more permanent. We needed them to reveal their endgame, and I had an idea how to make that happen. I called Marcus to my study late one evening. He came looking worried. My summons had been formal, unlike my usual casual requests for his company. "Sit down, sweetheart," I said, pouring us both scotch. "There's something important we need to discuss." He sat, accepting the glass with careful hands. "Is everything okay, Mom? You seem more like yourself tonight." That observation made my heart ache. He'd noticed. Some part of him recognized that I'd been different lately, diminished somehow. But instead of questioning it, he'd accepted it as inevitability. "I've been thinking about your wedding," I said, "about what comes after. I'm 72 years old, Marcus. I've had a good life, a full life, but I'm tired. And these past few months, I've felt myself slowing down, getting confused more often." I paused, meeting his eyes. "I think it's time I made some final arrangements." He went pale. "Mom, don't talk like that. You're fine. You're just declining," I said gently. "We both know it. Dr. Morrison has been honest with you, hasn't he?" Marcus looked away, guilt written across his face. He had known about the forged medical records, had accepted them as truth without question. "I want to give you something," I continued, pulling out a leather portfolio, "documents that will make the transition easier, my complete will, with all provisions, instructions for my care if I become unable to manage my own affairs, powers of attorney, everything." I slid the portfolio across the desk. Marcus opened it with shaking hands, scanning the documents. They were legal, properly notarized, and left everything, my entire estate, estimated at $400 million to him, with Vivian as co-beneficiary after the wedding. Mom, I can't think about this. You have to. These things need to be discussed. And there's something else. I pulled out another document. This is my advance directive. If I become incapacitated, if my quality of life deteriorates significantly, I don't want to be kept alive artificially. No heroic measures. Do you understand? He was crying now, silently. Please don't make me promise this. I need to know you'll honor my wishes, that you won't let them keep me in some facility, confused and scared, not knowing who I am. Promise me, Marcus, when the time comes, you'll let me go peacefully. He nodded, unable to speak. I reached across the desk and took his hand. I love you so much. You've been the greatest joy of my life, and I'm so proud of the man you've become, of the family you're building with Vivian. Your father would be proud too. I love you too, Mom, he whispered after he left, taking the portfolio with him. I sat in the dark for a long time. Patricia had hidden surveillance equipment throughout the house. We'd hear everything Marcus said to Vivian and David about this conversation. We'd know their reaction to the advance directive, to the will provisions, to my apparent acceptance of my own decline. And sure enough, at 11:47 p.m. that night, I got a text from Patricia. They took the bait. Emergency meeting at David's apartment. Recording in progress. You're not going to believe what they're planning. I drove there personally, parked 3 blocks away, and listened to the audio feed through my phone. Vivian's voice came through clearly. This is perfect. Better than we hoped. She's practically giving us permission. Permission for what? Marcus asked. He sounded confused, uncertain. To help her, obviously. David said smoothly, when she becomes too impaired to function, we'll honor her wishes. Make sure she's comfortable, not suffering. But she's not that bad yet. The doctors said she might have years left, even with the early dementia. There was a pause. Then Vivian's voice, sharp. Marcus honey, we need to be realistic. Your mother's decline is accelerating. Dr. Morrison told you last week she'd found her wandering the hospital parking lot, confused about where she was. That was a lie. I'd never been confused at the hospital. But Marcus didn't challenge it. She's becoming a danger to herself, David added, to the company. Last month she nearly signed a deal that would have cost us $40 million if you and I hadn't caught it in time. Another lie. There had been no such deal. Maybe we should look into care facilities, Marcus said weakly. Somewhere nice, where she'd be comfortable. We will, Vivian assured him. After the wedding, it would break her heart to miss it. Let her have this one last happy moment, and then we'll do what's necessary. One last happy moment, Marcus repeated. Jesus, this is hard. You're doing the right thing, David said. You're protecting her, protecting the company, protecting your future family. Your dad would understand. Silence. Then Marcus again, the advance directive. She was really clear about not wanting to suffer. If she gets to the point where she doesn't recognize us anymore, where she's just existing, then we honor her wishes, Vivian said firmly. We let her go peacefully, surrounded by people who love her. It's what she wants. Marcus, she told you herself. More silence. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, okay? After the wedding, we'll figure it out. I stopped the recording and sat in my car, shaking. They were planning to kill me. Not immediately, but the framework was there. They'd established that I was incompetent, confused, a danger to myself. They'd moved me to a facility where they controlled my care. And then, when enough time had passed for suspicion to fade, they'd honor my wishes and withdraw care, citing the advance directive I'd just given them. It would look like mercy, like a loving son respecting his mother's final wishes. And Marcus, God help me, Marcus was going along with it. I called an emergency meeting with Patricia and her team. We have enough, Patricia said firmly. The recordings, the financial documents, Vivian's real identity. We can take this to the police right now. They'll arrest her and David, and Marcus will be protected. No, I was standing at my office window, watching the sun set over the city my husband and I had built our fortune in. It's not enough. Mrs. Bennett, Marcus is still choosing them, I said. Even in that recording, he was uncertain, conflicted, but he was going along. If we arrest them now, he'll think we destroyed his life. He'll see Vivian as the victim, himself as the hero who stood by her. We'll lose him forever. Patricia exchanged glances with her team. Then what do you want to do? I want him to see who they really are. Not through evidence, not through court testimony, but through his own eyes. I want him to hear them say what they really think of him, what they really plan to do. and I want it to happen in a way he can't deny, can't rationalize, can't explain away. You want to provoke them into showing their true faces. At the wedding reception, here, in my home, surrounded by everyone who matters, I want them so confident, so certain they've won, that they drop their masks completely. Patricia leaned back, studying me. That's incredibly dangerous. If they realize you've been playing them, if they panic, they won't. Because I'm going to give them one final gift before the wedding. Something so valuable, so unbelievably perfect for their plans, that they won't be able to resist celebrating. What gift? I smiled. I'm going to have a stroke. The stroke was beautifully executed. I collapsed during a board meeting, slurring my words, dropping my water glass. The paramedics I'd secretly hired through Patricia arrived within minutes. I was rushed to the hospital, where Dr. Morrison, who was in on the plan, and absolutely furious about the forged medical records in her files, performed a full examination. Marcus was beside himself. He stayed at the hospital for 3 days while I recovered, holding my hand, telling me everything would be okay. Vivian and David visited regularly, playing concerned family members perfectly, but Patricia's team, monitoring the hospital room with hidden cameras, caught their real reactions when they thought I was sleeping. This is actually ideal timing, Vivian whispered to David outside my room. After the wedding, we can say the stress triggered a major decline. Move her to Willowbrook immediately. Willowbrook. Patricia had researched a high-end memory care facility with spotless records and absolutely no oversight. The perfect place to hide someone you wanted to disappear. Marcus is already talking about postponing the wedding, David said, worried. Don't let him. We need that marriage certificate before she potentially recovers, or someone realizes what's happening. Once I'm legally family, I have standing to make medical decisions if Marcus becomes too emotional to act. And if she does recover, if this was just a mild stroke. Vivian's voice dropped lower. Then we accelerate the timeline. The advanced directive gives us options. A pillow, a medication error, another stroke triggered by stress. Strokes are so unpredictable, they can happen in clusters. My eyes were closed, but I was fully awake, recording every word. David made an uncomfortable sound. Viv, I signed up for financial crimes. Not what. Don't go soft on me now. She's an obstacle. A very wealthy obstacle between us and $400 million. Marcus will grieve, but he'll have you to lean on, and he'll have me. And in a few years, when another tragic accident happens to Marcus himself. She stopped, but the implication hung in the air. They weren't planning to just steal my fortune. They were planning to take everything and then murder my son. David was quiet for a long moment. Then, the wedding goes forward. We contain Marcus's emotions, keep him focused on Vivian and the future. After that, we'll reassess based on Eleanor's condition. Fine, but I want her transferred to Willowbrook within 2 weeks of the wedding. I don't care if we have to drag her there unconscious. They left. I opened my eyes and looked directly at the hidden camera, mouthing one word, perfect. I insisted on attending, against doctor's orders and Marcus's protests. I got out of my hospital bed, put on my finest dress, deep blue silk that James had always loved, and went to my son's wedding. They'd transformed my garden into something from a fairy tale. White roses everywhere, strings of lights hanging from the trees, a small orchestra playing chamber music. 200 guests filled the lawn, dressed in their best, celebrating what they thought was a beautiful love story. I sat in the front row during the ceremony, my face carefully neutral, watching my son marry a woman who planned to kill him. When the officiant said, "Speak now or forever hold your peace," I felt every eye in the garden turn to me. They were waiting, hoping, perhaps for the dramatic mother-in-law objection. I smiled and said nothing. The reception that followed was elegant, expensive, perfect. Champagne flowed, the orchestra played, guests danced under the lights while I sat at the head table, flanked by Marcus and his new wife, playing my role. I gave a toast. To Marcus, I said, standing with crystal champagne flute raised, my voice carrying across the garden. My beautiful son, my greatest achievement, your father would be so proud of the man you've become. I turned to Vivian, and to Vivian, who has brought such joy into his life. Welcome to our family, dear. I know you'll take care of him. Vivian smiled triumphantly. Always, Mother Eleanor, always. I drank deeply, feeling the weight of Patricia's surveillance equipment hidden throughout the garden, recording everything for the confrontation I'd planned. The night wore on. Guests mingled, ate, danced. David gave a best man speech full of jokes and false emotion. Marcus's college friends got progressively drunk. The mood was light, celebratory, unsuspecting. At 10 p.m. I made my move. I stood from the head table and approached the microphone. The orchestra stopped playing, conversations died down. 200 people turned to face me, expecting another sentimental toast. If I could have everyone's attention, I said pleasantly. There's been a small change to the evening's schedule. I'd like to invite everyone inside for a special presentation. Marcus looked confused but pleased. He thought I'd arranged some surprise gift. Vivian and David exchanged glances, uncertain but still confident. I led the crowd inside, into my home's main hall, where Patricia had set up a large screen and projection system, supposedly for a slideshow of Marcus's childhood photos. Everyone filed in, chattering excitedly. Marcus and Vivian stood at the front. David positioned himself near the Smart, but Patricia's security team had that covered. When everyone was settled, I walked to the center of the room. Thank you all for coming tonight, I began, for celebrating what appears to be a joyous occasion, the marriage of my son to a woman he loves, a beginning of something beautiful. Smiles all around. Marcus beamed. Vivian squeezed his hand. But before we continue the celebration, I said, my voice hardening just slightly, I think we need to address some uncomfortable truths. You see, I've been playing a role these past few months, a very specific, very painful role. The room went quiet. Marcus frowned. Mom, what are you? I've been pretending to lose my mind, I said clearly, pretending to forget things, to sign documents without reading them, to be confused and declining, and I did it to see who would try to take advantage of a weak old woman. Vivian went white. David started moving toward the exit, but Patricia's security team blocked his path. What is this? Vivian demanded, her voice shaking. Marcus, your mother is confused. She needs to rest. I'm not confused. I've never been confused. Dr. Morrison, would you please stand? My doctor stood from the crowd, her face grim. Mrs. Bennett is in perfect health. No dementia, no cognitive decline. The medical records indicating otherwise were forgeries, placed in my files without authorization. I've filed the police report. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus looked between me and Vivian, comprehension dawning slowly, horribly. Vivian, he said quietly, tell me this isn't true. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't finished. Your wife's real name is Veronica Castellano, I said. She's 34 years old, not This is her fourth inheritance con. Her previous victim was a man named Harold Chen, whose son died in a suspicious car accident 6 months after marrying her. She walked away with $12 million. I clicked a remote. The screen behind me lit up with Vivian's mugshot, her real driver's license, police reports from previous investigations. No, Marcus whispered. No, Mom, this is crazy, and your best friend David has been her partner in all of this. I continued mercilessly. They planned this together. The meet-cute between you and Vivian, orchestrated, every moment of your romance, scripted. They studied you, Marcus. They learned what you wanted in a partner, and built her into that person. More images appeared, emails between Vivian and David, bank records, surveillance photos. Marcus was shaking his head, backing away from his new wife. Tell me it's not true. Vivian, please, tell me, Marcus. She's insane. Vivian grabbed his arm. She's trying to ruin our happiness because she can't stand to lose control of you. This is exactly what David warned us about. She's manipulating you, lying. Then explain the emails, I said coldly. I clicked again. Their own words appeared on the screen, projected 10 feet high for everyone to read. The old woman suspects nothing. Marcus is completely under control. Marcus is getting nervous. I need you to back up the Hong Kong story. Either way, we win. Silence. Horrible, crushing silence. Marcus read the emails, his face crumbling. You called me under control. Baby, no, that's out of context. Vivian started, and here's the really interesting part. I said. I clicked one final time. The audio recording from David's apartment played over the speakers. Vivian's voice, crystal clear. This is perfect. Better than we hoped. She's practically giving us permission to help her, to make sure she's comfortable, not suffering. Then, a pillow, a medication error, another stroke, triggered by stress. Strokes are so unpredictable. And finally, in a few years, when another tragic accident happens to Marcus himself, the room erupted. Guests shouted, Cameras flashed. Patricia had invited press. Brilliant woman. 2 police officers I'd arranged to have standing by moved forward. Marcus stood frozen, staring at his wife of 4 hours as if he'd never seen her before. You were going to kill my mother, he said in a voice I didn't recognize, and then me. Vivian's mask finally shattered. The sweet, devoted woman vanished, replaced by something cold and predatory. You stupid boy, she hissed. You were so easy. Playing the sensitive intellectual, the mama's boy, desperate to prove he was his own man. All I had to do was pretend to be impressed by your boring business stories and let you think you were teaching me about wine. She laughed, a harsh sound that made several guests flinch. And you, she turned to me, I almost had you. You were this close to signing over everything. Another month and that's when she slapped me. The sound echoed through the room. My glasses flew off. Blood filled my mouth. And Marcus, my son, stood there and did nothing. The police arrested Vivian and David on the spot. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. The charges kept mounting as Patricia's team delivered box after box of evidence to the prosecutors. The wedding reception ended in chaos. Guests fled. Cameras captured everything. And by morning, the story was everywhere. Society wedding exposed as murder plot. But none of that mattered compared to what was broken between Marcus and me. He stood in my study 3 days later, unshaven, eyes hollow. He hadn't called, hadn't texted. He'd simply shown up, let himself in with keys he'd had since childhood, and found me in James's chair, surrounded by legal documents. You let me marry her, he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. You knew everything, and you let me stand at that altar and marry a woman who wanted to kill you. Kill me. I had to know if you would choose her over me, I said quietly. If you'd believe I was declining without question. If you'd sign papers to commit me to a facility. So this was a test. Your own son was a test. Everything's a test, Marcus. Life, business, family, they're all tests of who we really are when no one's watching. He laughed bitterly. Then I guess I failed, because I believed her. I believed David. I believed you were losing your mind. And I was relieved, because it meant I didn't have to feel guilty about taking control of the company, about making decisions without you. She made me feel like I was saving you. I know. Do you know what it was like watching you forget things, repeat yourself, sign documents without understanding them? It terrified me. I didn't want to believe my mother was disappearing. So when Vivian told me we could manage it, could protect you and the company, I wanted to believe her. He slumped into a chair, looking decades older than his 35 years. At the hospital, when you had this stroke, Vivian talked about moving you to Willowbrook after the wedding, and I didn't argue hard enough. I knew something felt wrong, but I told myself it was for the best, that I was honoring your wishes about quality of life. Did you plan to kill me, Marcus? I asked directly. He looked up, shocked. What? God, no. I would never. Then you didn't fail the most important test. You were manipulated, lied to, deceived by people you trusted, but you weren't complicit in their plans. The recordings make that clear. I was going to let them put you in a facility. That's complicit enough. I stood, walked to where he sat, and did something I hadn't done since he was a child. I cupped his face in my hands, forcing him to meet my eyes. You were going to make sure I was comfortable and cared for. If I truly was declining, that's not the same as what they planned. They would have killed me, Marcus, probably within months, and then they would have killed you. Tears ran down his face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see it, that I didn't protect you, that I stood there at the wedding and did nothing when she, that moment, told me everything I needed to know. I said softly, you were in shock. Your entire world had just collapsed. The woman you loved was revealed as a monster, and you didn't know if you could trust your own mother, the woman who'd just orchestrated the most elaborate deception of your life. So you froze. That's human, Marcus. That's understandable. I should have stopped her from hitting you. You should have, but you were paralyzed, and now you have to decide, can you forgive yourself for that moment, because I've already forgiven you. He pulled away, standing, pacing. I don't know if I can. Every time I close my eyes, I see her hand connecting with your face, and I see myself just standing there like a coward. Then we work on that, together, because despite everything, you're still my son, and I still love you more than anything in this world. He stopped pacing, turned to face me. Do you trust me? The question hung between us, heavy with implication. Could I trust him with the company again, with my life, with the relationship we'd built over 35 years? I trust who you are at your core, I said carefully, but we both learned that trust needs to be rebuilt gradually. You'll earn back operational control of Bennett Pharmaceuticals through demonstrated judgment. You'll prove that you've learned to question, to verify, to not accept things at face value just because you want to believe them. How long will that take? As long as it takes. But Marcus, I moved closer. I do trust you with the most important thing. My heart, my love, the part of me that's your mother rather than your business partner, that's never wavered, not once. He broke down then, really broke down, sobbing like he hadn't since James died. I held my son and let him grieve for his marriage, for his innocence, for the easy trust he'd lost. And in that moment, I knew we would survive this, damaged, changed, wiser, but together. Or so I thought. But trial preparations consumed my life. Patricia's evidence was airtight, but Vivian and David had hired expensive lawyers who were finding every possible procedural delay. Marcus threw himself into therapy, working through his trauma and guilt. We had dinner together weekly, rebuilding our relationship meal by careful meal. He'd moved back into his old apartment, couldn't bear to stay in the condo he'd shared with Vivian. The company was recovering. The board had been shocked, but supportive, and our stock had actually climbed on the news. Investors apparently appreciated a CEO who could outmaneuver sophisticated con artists. Everything seemed to be settling into a new, healthier normal. Then, I got the call from Patricia at 2 a.m. Mrs. Bennett, you need to listen very carefully. David Westbrook made bail 3 hours ago. He should have been denied. His flight risk is off the charts, but someone pulled strings, and he's disappeared. I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. What do you mean disappeared? I mean he's not at his apartment, not at any of his known associates' locations, and he's disabled his ankle monitor. Local PD found it cut off in a parking garage downtown. He's in the wind. He's coming for me. We don't know that, but out of an abundance of caution, I've got a protection team heading to your location right now. They'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't open the door for anyone else. After she hung up, I sat in the darkness of my bedroom, listening to the old house settle around me. The security system was armed, but it was designed to stop opportunistic thieves, not a desperate man facing decades in prison. I thought about calling Marcus but decided against it. He'd just panic and do something stupid. Better to wait for Patricia's team. I was halfway down the stairs to let them in when my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hello, Eleanor. David's voice was rough, exhausted. I hope I'm not calling too late. My blood went cold. Where are you, David? Somewhere you'll never find me. Don't worry, I'm not coming for you. I'm not that stupid. I just wanted to give you a gift before I disappear forever. What kind of gift? The truth about who really set all of this in motion. I stopped walking. What are you talking about? Vivian and I didn't just randomly select Marcus. We were hired, paid a substantial upfront fee to target your family specifically, with detailed plans about how to infiltrate your life and extract maximum value. Hired by whom? Someone who knew everything about you, Eleanor, your business, your relationships, your vulnerabilities. Someone who hated you enough to want to see you destroyed, but was smart enough to use proxies so their hands stayed clean. My mind raced through possibilities, business rivals, disgruntled former employees, someone from James's past. Why, tell me this, I asked. Why warn me now? Because I'm done being someone else's weapon, and because the person who hired us is still out there, still planning. Taking us down didn't stop anything. It just meant they'll try a different approach. Next time, you might not see it coming. David, if you tell me who it is, I can help you. I can talk to the prosecutors about a deal. He laughed. I'm not that naive, but I'll give you a clue, because honestly, you deserve a fighting chance. Ask yourself who stood to benefit most from you being declared incompetent, who would have gained power, access, control. If Vivian and I had succeeded, Marcus would have inherited everything. Exactly. So who benefits from controlling Marcus, who's been positioned perfectly to guide a grieving, guilty son through the aftermath of his mother's tragic decline? The doorbell rang. Patricia's security team. I have to go, David said. But Eleanor, watch your back. And more importantly, watch who you trust, because the person who hired us is very, very close to you. He hung up. I opened the door for the security team, let them sweep the house, accepted their assurances that I was safe, But David's words kept echoing. Who benefits from controlling Marcus? Who, indeed? I called Marcus for an emergency breakfast meeting at my home. He arrived looking worried, probably expecting more fallout from the trial. Mom, what's wrong? Patricia said you had some kind of security threat last night. I watched him carefully as I poured coffee. David called me. He's jumped bail and disappeared. But before he went, he told me something interesting. He said he and Vivian didn't target us randomly. Someone hired them. Someone who knew everything about our family. Marcus went pale. Hired them. Who would? Why would? ... That's what I need to figure out. David suggested I look at who benefited most from their plan succeeding. Who would have gained control if I'd been committed to a facility and you'd inherited everything? That doesn't make sense. I would have inherited, but I wouldn't have been under anyone's control. I'd have been. He stopped. Understanding, dawning, a grieving son, feeling guilty and traumatized, looking for guidance and support. Who would you have turned to? Marcus, who was positioned to be your trusted advisor. He stood abruptly, pacing. You think someone close to us orchestrated this whole thing? That's insane. Who could possibly? Walk me through it. After my hypothetical decline, after I was safely tucked away in Willowbrook, and you controlled Bennett Pharmaceuticals, who would you have consulted on major decisions? The board, obviously, the executive team. You taught me never to make big calls alone. And on a personal level, who would you have leaned on emotionally? He was quiet for a long moment. David was my best friend, but he's obviously compromised. So maybe, Aunt Caroline. She's always been like a second mother to me. My sister Caroline, the one person I'd kept completely out of my investigation because I'd assumed her loyalty was unquestionable. But David's words suddenly made terrible sense. Very, very close to you. Tell me about your relationship with Carolyn, I said carefully, specifically these past few years. Marcus shrugged. It's always been good. After Dad died, she was there for both of us. She helped you with the company transition. She checked in on me constantly. Why, you can't think Caroline would. Just humor me. When did Vivian meet Caroline? At that charity gala last year, the cancer research fundraiser. Caroline actually introduced us. Now that I think about it, she'd been talking to Vivian about some legal matter, and when she saw me alone at the bar, she brought Vivian over. My heart sank. And David, how did he and Caroline know each other? They've been friends for years. Since before Dad died, Caroline actually recommended David as a business partner when I was starting out. She said he was brilliant, trustworthy, ... The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture I desperately didn't want to see. My sister Caroline, 12 years younger than me, had always lived in my shadow. I was the one who married the pharmaceutical genius. I was the one who built an empire. I was the one with the perfect son, the perfect life. Caroline had married and divorced 3 times, always 2 wealthy men who left her just comfortable enough, but never truly rich. She worked as our company's general counsel, a position I'd given her out of familial loyalty, but she'd always wanted more, wanted what I had. I need to speak with Caroline, I said, alone. Don't tell her I'm coming. Mom, you're not seriously suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything yet. I'm investigating. There's a difference. But as I drove to Caroline's waterfront condo an hour later, I knew, the way you know when a business deal is about to fall apart, or when a marriage is over, the pattern recognition that comes from 72 years of watching human nature. My sister had tried to destroy me. Caroline's condo was exactly like her, beautiful, expensive, and carefully curated to appear just slightly less successful than mine. She greeted me in yoga pants and a cashmere sweater, her highlighted hair perfect despite the early hour. Eleanor, what a wonderful surprise. I was just making coffee. Would you like some? No, thank you. This isn't a social call. Her smile flickered. That sounds ominous. David Westbrook called me last night. He told me some interesting things before he disappeared. She busied herself with coffee cups, her back to me. I heard he jumped bail. Typical criminal behavior. He told me that he and Vivian were hired to target my family, that someone paid them to seduce Marcus, to manipulate me, to destroy us from the inside. Caroline turned slowly. Her face showed appropriate shock. That's horrible. Who would do such a thing? Someone who knew our vulnerabilities, someone who had access to our business, our personal lives, our relationships, someone positioned to benefit once Marcus was traumatized and in need of guidance. Eleanor, what are you implying? I walked to her wall of family photographs. Carolyn with Marcus as a child. Carolyn at my wedding. Carolyn at dozens of Bennett Pharmaceuticals events. In nearly every photo, she was in the background, smiling, supportive. Secondary. How much did you pay them? I asked quietly. I have no idea what you how much. My voice cracked like a whip. Caroline flinched, and in that flinch, I saw her guilt. I want to understand, I continued. Was it the money, the company, the fact that I've always had more than you? Or was it something deeper, some old resentment from childhood that I never knew about? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed, not the polite, social laugh I'd heard 1,000 times, but something bitter and honest. You really don't know, do you? She set down her coffee cup with a sharp click. You never saw it. Saw what? That everything you have should have been mine. I stared at her. Caroline, Dad's company, the pharmaceutical business, he built it from nothing, and I was the one who studied chemistry, who understood the science, who actually gave a damn about the research. But when he died, who did he leave it to? His golden oldest daughter, Eleanor, who married the right man and played the perfect hostess. Dad left it to me because James and I had spent 15 years running it together. You were still in grad school. I was 26 years old. I could have learned, could have grown into the role. But you took it, expanded it, made it into an empire, while I got to be your company lawyer. Do you know how that feels? Watching my sister succeed with my legacy while I draft contracts and review patents. You never said anything, never once indicated how could I. You were so gracious about giving me a job, so generous with my salary. Everyone thought I should be grateful. Her voice dripped with sarcasm. And then James died, and I thought maybe, finally, you'd need me. You'd lean on me, trust me with real power. But no, you just got stronger. You didn't need anyone. I felt like I was seeing my sister for the first time. So you hired con artists to destroy my family. I hired people to give me what should have been mine from the beginning. The plan was simple. You'd be declared incompetent. Marcus would inherit, and I'd guide him. I'd finally have the power I deserved. And in a few years, when Marcus met with an unfortunate accident, she smiled, the company would go to his closest living relative, me. You were going to kill your own nephew. I was going to free him from a life he never wanted. Marcus hates the pharmaceutical business. He always has. He wants to paint, write poetry, live some artistic life. I would have been doing him a favor. The rationalization was breathtaking, and Vivian and David were just supposed to kill me and disappear. They were supposed to follow the plan, but that idiot David got greedy, started talking about taking you out faster, and Vivian got sloppy with her paper trail. I would have gotten away with it if they'd been more professional. I stared at my sister, this woman I'd known for 60 years, and felt nothing. No love, no anger, just a vast, cold emptiness. You're going to confess, I said. You're going to tell the police everything, and you're going to help them find David before he hurts anyone else. Caroline laughed again. Or what? You'll turn me in yourself. With what proof? David's word against mine. He's a fugitive and a con artist who's going to believe him. You just confessed to me. And you're my sister. Even you wouldn't destroy your own family like that. You'd find some way to handle this quietly, to protect the Bennett name. She stepped closer. Besides, I still have cards to play. Marcus loves me. If this becomes public, if you make me the villain, I'll make sure he knows you sacrificed his marriage, his happiness, all for a sting operation. I'll make him choose between us. He'll choose me, will he? After you let him marry a woman who wanted to kill him, after you put him through that trauma for your own satisfaction. Are you sure about that, Eleanor? And there it was, the seed of doubt she'd planted perfectly. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. You're right about one thing. I won't destroy you publicly. I won't drag our family through more scandal or force Marcus to choose between us. Relief flooded her face. I knew you'd, but you're finished. Effective immediately. You're terminated from Bennett Pharmaceuticals. Your company credit cards are cancelled. Your access revoked. Your severance contingent on signing an NDA and a non-compete clause. You'll never work in pharmaceuticals again. You can't do that. I'm on the board. I still control 51% of shares. I can do whatever I want, and I want you gone. Eleanor, please, be reasonable. 24 hours, I said coldly. You have 24 hours to clear out your office and disappear from my life. If I ever find out you've contacted Marcus, if you ever try to come back into our lives, I will release everything I know to the police and the press. Am I clear? She stared at me, hate and fear warring on her face. Crystal, I left her there and walked to my car on shaking legs. Only when I was safely inside, doors locked, did I let myself break down. My sister had tried to have me killed. The little girl I'd protected from bullies, whose homework I'd checked, whose weddings I'd paid for. She'd orchestrated a plan to murder me and my son. How do you recover from that? The trial concluded with both Vivian and David receiving lengthy prison sentences. David had been caught trying to flee to Mexico and had ultimately testified against Caroline in exchange for a slightly reduced sentence. My sister took a plea deal, 10 years for conspiracy and fraud. No murder charges since the actual attempts never occurred. She'd looked at me exactly once during her sentencing, her face empty of emotion. Marcus and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, painfully. He moved back into company operations under careful supervision. We attended family therapy together, worked through our trust issues, learned to communicate honestly instead of through tests and manipulation. But something had broken between us that would never fully heal. A wariness in his eyes when I made suggestions, a hesitation before he shared personal information. The unconditional trust of childhood was gone forever, replaced by something more fragile and carefully maintained. The pharmaceutical company thrived. The scandal had actually boosted our profile. The media loved the story of the clever CEO who'd outwitted con artists. We got interview requests, book deal offers, speaking engagements. I turned them all down because despite everything, despite winning, despite surviving, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost something irreplaceable. I'd proven I was smarter than my enemies. I'd protected my fortune and my company. I'd even saved my son's life. But I'd sacrificed the easy joy of family, the simple pleasure of trusting the people you love. Every relationship now came with an asterisk, a footnote of doubt. Was it worth it? I asked myself that question standing in my garden on a cool October evening, 6 months to the day after the wedding that wasn't. The roses James and I had planted were blooming, their perfume heavy in the air. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, dinner tomorrow. There's someone I want you to meet. Someone new, already. Another potential threat or genuine connection. I stared at the message for a long time, feeling the weight of choice. I could say no, could protect us both from future betrayal. I could maintain emotional distance, keep Marcus at arm's length where he was safe but never truly close. Or, I could say yes. I could meet this new person with open eyes but also an open heart. I could trust that I'd taught Marcus to be more careful, that he'd learned his lessons as brutally as I'd learned mine. I thought about what James would say. My James, who'd believed in second chances and redemption, who'd always seen the best in people even when they disappointed him. Eleanor, I could hear his voice. The only thing worse than being betrayed is becoming so suspicious that you can't love anymore. Don't let them take that from you. I typed my response. Yes, I'd love to meet them. And maybe it would end badly. Maybe this new person would be another Caroline, another Vivian, another betrayal waiting to happen. But maybe, just maybe, they'd be genuine. Marcus had survived his trial by fire. Perhaps he deserved the chance to build something real from the ashes. Either way, I'd be watching, always watching, because that's what mothers do. We protect, we plan, we test the waters before letting our children swim. And if this new person hurt my son, if they turned out to be another threat to my family, well, they'd learn exactly what Eleanor Bennett does to people who underestimate her twice. The knock came at 11 p.m., 3 weeks after my dinner with Marcus and his new girlfriend, Rebecca. I wasn't surprised. I'd been expecting this, or something like it, ever since David's first phone call. When you pull back the curtain on one conspiracy, you often find others lurking behind it. I opened the door to find Patricia on my doorstep, her face grave. "I've been digging deeper into the money trail," she said without preamble. "Following the payments Caroline made to David and Vivian, the money didn't come from her personal accounts. It was routed through a shell corporation that traces back to a trust fund set up by your father 30 years ago. A trust that names Caroline as beneficiary but you as trustee." My blood went cold. She embezzled from her own trust fund to hire people to kill me. "Not exactly, Eleanor. The trust has 2 signatures required for large withdrawals, Caroline's and yours. That's impossible. I never signed." Patricia pulled out documents, authorization forms with my signature, dated over the past 2 years, perfect copies, identical to 1,000 other papers I'd signed for company business. "These are forgeries," I said slowly. "They have to be." I thought so too, but the handwriting analysts say they're genuine. The banking records show the signing happened at your usual branch, with your usual bank officer present, during hours you were documented as being there. I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. What are you saying? I'm saying that either Caroline is an even better forger than we thought, or, Patricia sat beside me, her voice gentle. Or you did sign these papers, Eleanor, and you don't remember doing it. The implication hung between us like poison. The stroke I faked, I said slowly, the symptoms I pretended to have. What if some of them weren't fake? What if I actually have been experiencing small gaps, minor confusions, and I just didn't realize it because I was so focused on playing a role? I think you need to see Dr. Morrison. Not for show this time, but for real tests. After Patricia left, I sat alone in my study, staring at those documents with my signature, my genuine signature, on papers I had no memory of signing, authorizing funds that paid for my own murder. What if the conspiracy hadn't been entirely external? What if my own failing mind had been part of the problem all along? I thought about James, about his final years when the cancer made him confused sometimes, when he'd repeat conversations or forget important meetings. I'd managed everything then, protected him, let him believe he was still in control, even as I quietly took over. What if I needed that now? What if Marcus, despite everything, would have to become my protector rather than the other way around? The thought was unbearable. I picked up my phone to call Dr. Morrison, to schedule the tests I'd need, to face whatever truth was waiting. But before I could dial, I noticed something, a detail I'd missed in my earlier panic.